Hey everyone, welcome back to Genai's F1 News. We've got a packed show today, so let's get straight into it. The big one kicking things off, the FIA has officially confirmed a package of tweaks to the 2026 Formula One regulations, and the timing is no coincidence. They want changes bedded in before the Miami Grand Prix. According to both Motorsport.com and Autosport, Monday saw a landmark meeting between the FIA, Formula One management, all the teams, and the power unit manufacturers. This was the highest-level gathering yet to address the concerns that have been piling up since the new rules launched at the start of the season. Now, before anyone gets too excited, the FIA and F1 had already made clear that a wholesale rip-and-replace of the regulations was never on the table. What we're getting is more targeted. In fact, Autosport described the approach perfectly using a phrase from inside the paddock. This is about using, quote, a scalpel, not a baseball bat. Precision adjustments, not emergency surgery. So what are the main pain points? Drivers have been vocal about having to lift and coast during qualifying, basically managing energy so aggressively that they can't push flat out, which fans and commentators have found deeply unsatisfying. There are also safety concerns being raised. Haas driver Ollie Behrman, speaking to Motorsport.com, specifically flagged that safety is his #1 priority when it comes to what he'd change. And Sky Sports commentator David Croft has publicly hoped the FIA gets things sorted well before the British Grand Prix, saying he doesn't want to see iconic corners like Maggots and Beckett's diminished by cars that can't carry full power through them. The vibe from the stakeholder meeting, per Motorsport.com, was constructive, but the message is clear. Changes are coming, and they need to be careful not to create new problems while fixing old ones. Miami is the next big test. Now, tied closely to those regulation discussions is a controversy brewing around something called ADUO, that stands for Additional Design and Upgrade Opportunities. And Mercedes boss Toto Wolff is not happy about how it might play out. Here's the backstory. As reported by Motorsport.com and Autosport, the FIA built ADUO into the 2026 power unit rules specifically to prevent a repeat of 2014, when one manufacturer dominated because their engine was simply on another level. The way it works, every 6 races, engine outputs are measured. If a manufacturer is between 2 and 4% behind the best power unit on the grid, they get a chance to bring an extra upgrade. More than 4% behind, they automatically qualify for more development tokens. Sounds fair, right? Well, here's where it gets spicy. Toto Wolff is reportedly concerned that some manufacturers could deliberately game the system, essentially sandbagging their engine performance numbers in early measurements to qualify for extra upgrade opportunities, then unleashing the real power later in the season. Wolff was blunt about it, telling Motorsport.com there is no place for gamesmanship in this process, and that Mercedes would be disappointed if the ADUO system ended up distorting the championship fight. Wolff also pointed out that really, only one manufacturer on the current grid has a genuine engine deficit problem, so the system should be straightforward to apply. The implication being, if someone else suddenly starts qualifying for ADUO handouts, eyebrows are going to be raised. This is one to keep a very close eye on as the season progresses, folks. Alright, let's talk about what might be the most significant off-track story of the week, and honestly, of the season so far. Red Bull are losing people fast. The latest name to head for the exit is Gianpiero Lambiase, better known in F1 circles simply as GP, Max Verstappen's longtime race engineer and the voice in his ear through 4 World Championship campaigns. As Motorsport.com is reporting, Lambiase is making the move to McLaren, where he'll take up the role of Chief Racing Officer, with the switch expected to be completed by 2028. Now, former F1 driver and Sky Sports F1 analyst Karun Chandhok has come out swinging in response. Speaking to Motorsport.com, Chandhok warned that Red Bull need to make a big-name signing, and fast, to stop this from becoming a pattern that spirals out of control. He's right to be concerned. When you lose key technical and operational minds of Lambiase's caliber, the institutional knowledge that walks out the door with them is enormous. This isn't just about one engineer. It's about the culture, the processes, the unspoken chemistry that made Red Bull so dominant for so long. And let's not forget, this is happening at a time when Max Verstappen himself has reportedly been frustrated with the 2026 car, even stepping away to compete in GT racing during the recent schedule break. Red Bull finding their feet again in 2026 was already going to be a challenge. Losing GP Lambiase to a direct title rival? That's a gut punch. From Red Bull's pain to Williams' pain, though the nature of it is very different. Williams have had, by almost every measure, a deeply disappointing start to 2026. And the verdict from the media has been pretty brutal. Motorsport.com is reporting that F1 commentator Alex Jacques absolutely nailed the feeling when he described the situation as, quote, like talking about a really special family holiday for 2 years and then missing the flight. And honestly, that metaphor lands. Here's the context. Team principal James Vowles has spent 2+ years being remarkably transparent with the Williams fanbase, openly explaining what was wrong, what was being fixed, building genuine anticipation for this new era. The 2026 regulations were supposed to be Williams' great reset moment. A fresh technical rule set was their chance to close the gap to the frontrunners without having to overcome years of compounding development disadvantage. Instead, the early rounds have been painful. The promise hasn't translated into pace. Now, in fairness, Vowles has been managing expectations throughout. He was always honest that this would be a process. But when the hype builds and the results don't follow, the gap between expectation and reality feels enormous. It's worth remembering that Williams are genuinely rebuilding a team from the ground up. Infrastructure, personnel, culture. That doesn't happen overnight. But time and patience are finite resources in Formula One. While we're on the subject of Williams, there's a fascinating personal story that James Vowles shared recently, and it's all about the man who arguably made him, Toto Wolff. According to Motorsport.com, Vowles has opened up about just how significant Wolff's mentorship was in shaping his career. Vowles spent over a decade at Mercedes, rising from chief strategist all the way to motorsport strategy director, a role that put him at the heart of the team's most successful period in F1 history. And throughout that time, Wolff was the one pushing him, challenging him, and ultimately believing he was ready for a bigger stage. What's really interesting is the additional reporting from Motorsport.com that Vowles actually had multiple job offers on the table before choosing Williams. He didn't just default to the first opportunity that came along. He had options. And yet he chose the Williams project, which tells you something about his ambition. Taking on a struggling team with a rich legacy and trying to restore it to greatness. That's a harder path, but it's the kind of challenge that defines a career. And the Wolff connection doesn't end there. Vowles has made no secret of the fact that the approach to management and team building he learned at Mercedes under Wolff's leadership is the blueprint he's trying to apply at Williams. High standards, transparency, long-term thinking. Whether it works remains to be seen, but the foundations are clearly being laid with intention. Let's shift the energy and talk about one of the genuinely exciting storylines of the 2026 season, the rise of the young guns, led by none other than Kimi Antonelli. Motorsport.com has a great exclusive quote from F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali, who called Antonelli, and I love this phrase, fresh blood for the sport. Antonelli has already won twice this season and currently leads the Drivers' Championship. Not bad for someone who only got behind an F1 car for the very first time just 2 years ago during a wet test at the Red Bull Ring. But it's not just Antonelli. Motorsport.com is also reporting on analysis from former Haas team principal Gunnar Steiner, who has a really compelling theory for why the younger generation is thriving under these 2026 regulations specifically. Steiner argues that younger drivers simply don't have years of ingrained habits to unlearn. The 2026 cars behave differently. They demand different techniques, different instincts. Experienced drivers are having to deprogram muscle memory built over careers. Young drivers just adapt. They build their instincts fresh around the new machinery. It's a fascinating dynamic, and it's reshaping the championship order in ways nobody fully predicted. The 2026 regulations were sold as a reset, and for the young generation, that's exactly what it's been. Before we wrap up today, a couple of stories that deserve a mention. First up, Cadillac. Motorsport.com is reporting that F1 commentator Alex Jacques has been genuinely impressed by the American newcomers in their debut season. Cadillac joined the grid in 2026 as the 11th team, bringing a lineup of Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez. Jacques says they've already exceeded what most people expected of a brand new outfit in their first few races. Team Principal Graham Lodon has brought experience and calm leadership to the project, and for an expansion team still figuring out the basics, that kind of credibility matters. It's early days, but the signs are encouraging. American F1 fans, take note. And finally, a lighter one to end on. Motorsport.com has a brilliant story about Martin Brundle and his legendary pre-race grid walks. During an interview with Sky Sports F1, Brundle reflected on one of his most memorable encounters, a spontaneous run-in with none other than James Bond himself, Daniel Craig. Brundle described the moment as risky. Craig wasn't exactly prepared for the chaos of a live broadcast, and Brundle had to think fast. It's classic grid walk energy, the kind of unscripted, raw television that makes F1 unique. If you haven't seen Brundle's grid walk highlights, do yourself a favor and go look them up. All right, everyone. That's a wrap on today's episode of Genai's F1 News. We've got Miami coming up fast and plenty more drama to unpack between now and lights out. If you enjoyed this, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss an update, and we'll see you in the next one. Let's go racing.